Hello again, it's Mark Styers, and I made a video earlier today, and I just watched it with my wife a little while ago, and she was a little disappointed that I didn't do a little philosophy, so I thought I would come back on and sit up in my library in my bedroom and look over some stuff and talk about some philosophy. I had a seminar this weekend, and I always do philosophy on Saturday morning. And I told my wife I was going to do a little philosophy today, and I didn't. I just announced a few dates of some programs we have coming this year, so I wanted to come back on and do a little philosophy. I just loaded up a few slides on to a few pages, and the first one was a picture in Majorca that says, I want to inspire people. I want someone to look at me and say, because of you, I didn't give up. And there's a lot of my former students, people that I've taught, that always say to me, they miss the philosophy. So I decided I would start and do a little bit of philosophy on this now that I know how to use the Facebook Live button. So I'm going to do this, and please give me feedback and let me know if it's interesting. And if people like it, I'll keep doing it. True leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. I did a lot of talking about this on Saturday, about the difference between leadership and being a boss, because I often think about this with my own kids, that having sons, that I think the true measure for me, if I did a good job as being a leader, as a father, that they're going to want to be like me. They're going to want to be chiropractors and want to change people's lives. And I don't want to tell them what they have to do. I want them to decide for themselves, but I think if you're a leader and you're leading and you're doing a good job at that, and the difference between leadership is leading by example, and being a boss is just telling people what to do. So, Petra, welcome. A little more philosophy for you on your day off. And I wanted to give you a quote from a French philosopher. There is an almost sensual longing for communion with others who have a larger vision. The immense fulfillment of the friendship between those engaged in furthering the evolution of consciousness has a quality almost impossible to describe. And I relate this to chiropractic because most of the people in the chiropractic profession, I don't have a lot of commonality with them. But the ones that are truly passionate about helping people live the highest quality life they can, there's a communion between doctors like that. The same with medical doctors. Wow, what a beautiful horsefly. I don't know if you can see that on the top of my computer here. A little bit of nature coming into my bedroom library. So, yeah, it's the same thing when people ask me about how are you motivating German medical doctors, and I always say I don't really motivate anybody. I just show people the path I'm on, and if they're interested in their soul and going down that same path, we have something in common. Physical attractions are very common, but mental connections are very rare. There's millions and millions and millions of people in the world that all of us would look at and be physically attracted to, but how many people do you meet in life where mentally you're on the same page? I feel this more and more as I get older, of becoming more antisocial, that people my age, when I get invited to do things socially with people, I'm always a little bit hesitant, because this is the stage of life where people that aren't taking care of themselves are talking about their doctors and their disease and their treatments, and I talk about that all day, every day in my practice, and it's just not something I want to do in my off time. I tell everybody, if you want my help, I'm willing to help you, but I don't want to engage in the whining about what happens when people don't take care of themselves, because it just happens a lot. And I have this slide that my friend Tobias, it's his favorite slide, and it shows the three Stooges, and it says finding friends with the same mental disorder as you, and at the bottom, priceless. And I often show this slide when I'm teaching groups of doctors, and it's a metaphor for not really having mental disorders, but thinking very similar in a like-minded fashion. It's very rare to find people like that in your life, so I really cherish the people I have in my life that think like me, because I think as we get older we realize more and more how much, besides the love of our families and people close to us, human connections really make a difference in our mental health. And I think that the best teachers are those who show you where to look but don't tell you what to see. It's one of the things I often talk about, that I don't feel like I'm a teacher, although I've been teaching chiropractic to doctors for many, many years. I have a problem with standardized education, which is showing people the same things over and over again. And every time I'm doing something, it's very, very different. This past weekend I had the module 2 of full spine, and I was thinking back when I was driving home yesterday that it was completely different than anything I'd ever done before, because it's mostly in the mind. Mostly in the mind. I always tell doctors, showing someone how to move a bone from here to there, I could show a monkey how to do that. But understanding this one core important thing of doctors doing anything, and that is, where is neuropathophysiological normal? What is that? Understanding the content, understanding the anatomy and physiology, the stuff, the content, very well. And then this other thing is, the human being that's in front of you, where exactly are they at? So what do you do to take someone from here to there? My question is always, who cares? There's many, many different ways to achieve the same result. With technique, with procedure. My personal feelings are these things are immaterial. What matters most is, this is pathophysiologically normal, which is healthy or optimal functioning. And this over here is where the human being in front of you is at. Getting all of the information from the human being, taking a really good history, having good subjective and objective analysis and diagnostics to find out where they're at, so you have a clear path to where you need to go. And I always compare this, if I said, let's meet in Paris on the 27th of next month at the Eiffel Tower at 12 o'clock. Does it matter how you get there, or does it just matter that we arrive and we meet there at the same time? And I think this goes to the core dysfunction of people that are working on people. They get too wrapped up in their procedures and their techniques of whatever it is they're doing, instead of understanding those are just tools to achieve your objective of getting people from here to here. Who cares how you achieve that? If you're asking those two questions, you're going to find the answers. But those are the two most core philosophical questions. And I think of the word philosophy being, for me, asking the right question. And it's science that should provide the answers for that. And the art is the application of whatever technique or procedure you use to answer the question, utilizing the science on how you get somebody from where they're at to optimal functioning. Every single day, every one of us make a choice when we get up in the morning, mentally where we want to be at. If you wake up in the morning, you ask your body, how are we going to feel today? It's like raising up the white flag and surrendering the power of the mind to the body and letting the body become the mind, and not deciding beforehand, what kind of day are we going to have? Are we going to be happy? Are we going to be sad? Are we going to let the weather dictate our mood? At least for those people that let the weather dictate their mood, at least today is a spectacularly beautiful, sunny, warm day. So But at least in the northern hemisphere here, we don't have so many of those days. So I always tell people, if you're basing your emotions on the mood and you live in the northern hemisphere, you're probably going to have a lot of days in the year where you're fairly miserable. And think about this. The most powerful asset of a person is not a head full of knowledge, but a heart full of love, with ears open to listen and hands willing to help. And I think about this as it relates to the metaphor that I've been using a lot in the last couple weeks, thinking of this movie, The Avatar, and that scene where this young soldier comes into the village and the queen says, "You sky people, we can't teach you anything. Your cup is full." And this young man says, "Hey, my cup is empty." And I think this has helped me in life, all through life, have this attitude that I try to think of my cup being empty, that I have something to learn from everybody. And you still have to have a filter. It's not that everybody is a genius, but the potential in everybody is for genius. And that's a direct quote from Joe Dispenza, by the way. So, Buddha says, if you cannot find a good companion to walk with, walk alone like an elephant roaming the jungle. It is better to be alone than to be with those who will hinder your progress. And I think a lot about that has to do with a lot of people, a lot of great philosophers say, if you want to know the true nature of a man, look at the 5 closest people around him, and you can see by those people what type of person that is. And I can't say that I believe that 100%, because I think you could take some people into your life and have a positive influence on them, and that doesn't necessarily they have to wear off on you. I think it really has to do with whether or not your awareness is that you influence each other when you're in each other's lives. And this weekend I was talking about some doctors that won Nobel Prizes for science and medicine back in the 30s, and I forgot this one guy's name. Dr. Otto Warburg won a Nobel Prize in 1931 for proving that cancer can't survive in an alkaline, oxygen-rich environment, but thrives in an acidic, low-oxygen environment. Every single person that has cancer has a pH that is very, very acidic. So I'm not going to make the leap and tell you that cancer is only in an acidic environment, but what I like to tell people is Dr. Warburg won the Nobel Prize in 1931 for proving that. This was before the petrochemical pharmaceutical industry was invented. So that's definitely something to think about, because of the 75,000 known diseases in the world. The one thing they have in common is in every human being that they're in, that human being has a very low oxygen content. So does that mean that a high oxygen content, that your disease is going to go away? Well, I guess you'll have to try that and find out. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. This has to do with mental health, that I find myself giving this talk to people multiple times during the week. When people have come to me and they're taking care of all the factors of health that they need to take care of. They're putting good food in, they're exercising regularly, they're getting good sleep, they're getting their spine cared for regularly, but yet their symptoms aren't going away. And I say, well, you're overlooking the factor of mental health. That pain is the admission price of life. There's nothing anybody's going to do to never, ever feel any symptoms ever. But the question is how you think about it. It's going to determine the intensity. And that has to do with the suffering. So, life's journey is not to arrive at the grave safely in a well-preserved body, but rather to skid sideways, totally worn out, shouting, "Holy shit, what a ride." Think about this with people. There's people that I have known in my life, and I know in my life whose idea of living life is sitting in front of a television instead of going out and living life. And when you live life to its fullest and you go full speed, sometimes you bump into the wall. That's why you need a hand worker to put all the bones back together. That's what I do as a chiropractor. When the blood in your vein returns to the sea and the earth in your bone returns to the ground, perhaps then you'll remember that this land does not belong to you. It is you who belong to this land. I thought a lot about this in the last few months, and I changed the Healing Fest, this last program, Class 44, where I took people down to a very powerful spot in Cap de Pera where the salination of the water is very high. There's very high electrical activity. So instead of doing what we normally do in the morning, which is intense exercises, I was doing neuroemotional work while grounding people to the earth to get the frequency below 10 hertz. And it was very, very powerful. I had a little video clip of it that I just loaded up. And my wife was watching and she said, it's really a magical spot. It really is. And some people don't think about this, that they're walking around all day on material that is not the earth. They're walking around in houses and buildings, but they very rarely ever take their shoes and socks off and connect with the earth. And I think sometimes it's why so many people love the beach so much, because for many people, the only time they're ever really connecting with the earth, with their bodies, with their skin, with their feet, actually in the earth, not on pavement or stones, but actually connecting to the earth, is when they go to the beach. And you do that for 20 to 30 minutes. And you feel a shift in your body because the frequency has changed. This little machine that I'm using to make this video is resonating at hundreds and hundreds of hertz. We have Wi-Fi resonating through our houses and buildings and workplaces that is at a very high frequency. And not to be negative about that, but you can ground yourself to the earth just by walking outside and putting your feet on the earth, taking your shoes and socks off, walking in the grass, walking in the dirt, walking in the sand, and you really will feel a change. So, Buddha, I have another quote from Buddha. 3 things that cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Eventually they all come shining through. When I look into the eyes of an animal, I do not see an animal, I see a living being, I see a friend, I feel a soul. It's one of the things I think about in practice all the time, that my dream in practice eventually, that I'm getting closer, is to have a team of people that I've been building over time, so that I myself can just work on the very young, the very old, and animals, because I like being able to connect with people and animals with just these and not having to talk so much. When children come in, I don't need to say many words to them. I can let them play in the kids' playroom. With older folks, they kind of feel. They're more sensitive to what they feel. As we get older, we trust more in what we feel and less in talking. Because most of what we say, well, at least if you have ever read any philosophy from American Indian tribes, there's a tribe in the southwest United States called the Toltec Indians. There was a book written by a man named Don Miguel Ruiz, and I forget the name of the book, but I actually remembered his name, which is amazing because I usually forget names. Don Miguel Ruiz he grew up on a reservation, and he kind of turned away from his traditional peoples and their philosophies. Went to medical school, became a surgeon, quite reputable surgeon, and worked himself basically at the top of the food chain, the system, and found that his soul wasn't fulfilled. So he left that world, went back to the reservation, spent a great amount of time with his grandfather, learning the philosophy of the Toltec Indians, and he wrote a book about it. And I remember the first chapter, reading the first few pages, and the Toltec philosophy was, Human beings begin to lie the moment they learn how to speak the language. And they believe that 95%, almost everything we say is based on lies. And yeah, I think the older you get in life, the more you realize how much of a world of BS we actually live in. When you are able to silence all views and words, when you get free from views and words, reality reveals itself to you. And that is nirvana. That is a quote from an old Shaolin temple. And I want to give you a little bit of Gandhi. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I think about my time being in Germany when I first announced that I was teaching people that are not doctors of chiropractic, the vitriol that came at me from my profession, from people that had never met me. I remember getting an email from, at the time, the president of the European Union telling me that I had no wisdom. I still think that's hilarious. That somebody can tell you they have no wisdom and they never even met you. Maybe I don't have any wisdom. Maybe I had all the wisdom of the universe, but how would somebody know if they never even had a conversation with you? I didn't talk to this man on the phone. I didn't bump into him at a conference, but I always found that hilarious. And I find it even more ironic now that nearly 20 years later, the two groups of my former students have formed master degree programs in Germany, and they're beginning to be recognized by these same groups that attacked me from teaching in the beginning. So I always think about these words from Gandhi. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Because I generally, not for many years do I respond to people that tell me what a horrible monster I am for teaching chiropractic to medical people when they've never even met these medical people that I've taught over the years. And they don't know how many lives they're changing every day. They just automatically start making assumptions because most of these people, based on what they say to me, their only agenda is control. And for me, control is an illusion that I always say, hi, I'm Mark, I'm a recovering control freak. Most doctors that have balance in their life are recovering control freaks, because if you really believe you're in control and you're taking care of people, and we're all here for a finite amount of time, we're all going to die, that's a heavy burden of responsibility to bear. If you realize the only thing you control is the 5 factors of health, what you're putting into your body, the amount of movement you're doing each day, the quality of rest you're getting, the quality of thoughts in your head because you choose what you do with them, and choosing a hand worker to remove interference between the brain and the body, keeping the 24 bones of the spine and the 22 bones of the cranium in the right order so that your neurological system that controls everything can perform the way it was designed to do. And I have a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. Hatred confuses life. Love harmonizes it. Hatred darkens life, and love illuminates it. The last couple of days I was showing my wife some nasty things that are going on in the profession with people attacking each other and back and forth, and it's why I try to stay away from this. I don't join groups because this groupthink, it's the same thing about politics. I tell people I'm a political atheist. I have my own belief system, and the problem is as soon as you join a group, you say, I'm a part of this group, then people are judging you on the group, and they don't actually ever get to know what you think or believe. So I'm a big fan of Martin Luther King Jr., of not focusing on the negative in people, but thinking about how love illuminates life, and, judging each man or woman individually that you get to know based on their ideas and belief systems, but not some group that they belong to. And also a little bit of humor from George Carlin. Fighting for peace is like screwing for virginity. That is always hilarious. And I have a slide that I presented in Amsterdam a few years ago. 3 simple rules in life. If you do not go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you do not ask, the answer will always be no. If you do not step forward, you'll always be in the same place. And it's what I often say to young people about anything, is that you can't get a yes unless you risk a no. But I like that. If you do not step forward, you'll always be in the same place. And I think about that being, life is not static. You're either moving forward, you're either regenerating, or you're degenerating. And that is just how we're created neurologically. Our pathophysiology is not designed to be static. Our DNA is replicating every second we're alive. We're in a constant state of flux, and our bodies and systems and mind are in a constant state of warfare. Everybody's born and they die. And in between that, our body is at war. Every second we're alive. And a lot of people don't like the metaphor of war, but our body is constantly fighting all of the time. So the goal of being functioning well is to keep the body fighting so well that whatever you're coming into contact with, it's strong enough to fight it off. When you are truly comfortable with who you are, not everybody will like you, but you won't care about it one bit. I've said this a lot in my adult life, that my gift is I don't care what people think about me. And that doesn't mean that I don't want people to dislike me. It just has nothing to do with me. If somebody doesn't like me, how does that have anything to do with me? You meet people in life. Some will like you, some won't like you. And it has a lot to do with mental health, because it's something very particular that I deal with a lot in the German population, because I practice in Germany. That German people as a group, they want people to like them, and I often call it I want to be liked-itis, because if your focus of how you're acting and how your internal environment's adapting to the external, and you're making decisions based on what other people might think, do, or say about you, you're altering who you are. And so they're not actually getting to meet you. They're meeting this, whatever this avatar is you've created that you think is pleasing to other people, but it doesn't make you comfortable with who you are. So instead of going down that road, just let go of that. Just be who you are. The same amount of people are going to like you and dislike you, no matter how you try to change yourself to adapt to fit to somebody else. So you might as well be comfortable with yourself. The highest form of ignorance is when you reject something you don't know about. And I just made this comment before, years ago when I started teaching, and the amount of people that said things about me that just amazes me, because so many people said things about me, made judgments about me, and hadn't even met me. And I just thought, why don't you meet me first and then dislike me? Then you actually have some reason to not like me. It just really shows people's ignorance and unprofessionalism when they make judgments about people and things they have no personal experience with. They just, well, I heard from Bob and he heard from Sue and she told Mike and I heard that. It's just funny. The highest form of human intelligence is to observe yourself without judgment. And I often think about that Clint Eastwood quote in one of the movies he made years ago, where he said, "Man's got to know his limitations." And it's funny, I was talking to somebody about that yesterday. So many of Clint Eastwood's movies is low-budget movies where he had so many one-liners. There was so much wisdom in that. And man's got to know his limitations. Not being man, it could be man or woman, but actually being honest with yourself, of knowing we all have pluses and minuses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. I personally believe that the greatest asset every human being can have is being honest with themselves, because most people are not honest with themselves. Look inside yourself. You are more than you have already become. And I mentioned earlier Joe Dispenza, who was also a Life University graduate like myself, who was such a wordsmith. And when he has events, and many of you have been to Joe's programs, I love the fact that he calls everybody in the room geniuses. And the reason he says that is what Joe understands. He understands so much of the human mind and the human brain. He wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It has to do with us understanding that we're all given the same stuff. There's not people that are smarter or naturally gifted more. They just use more of their own potential. But all of us are given the same stuff. We're all 206 bones, 639 muscles, controlled by 31 nerve roots connecting the brain with the body. And we all have the same potential. It's just a question of how much we use of that. So I don't know how far I should go with this philosophy, because I have so much that I could just keep going and going and going, and I love doing it. And maybe I'll end on this one, is breaking the idea of being perfect. Growing up in an American culture, living in Germany, my big advantage was mentally and emotionally. I was never taught as a child that perfect was achievable. And when I first came here and I started working on teenagers in this culture, I had one young teenage girl tell me some years ago that she was having real difficulty mentally and emotionally trying to be perfect. And I thought it was a joke at first. And I thought, wow, there's a human being that actually thinks perfect is achievable. If you're one of those people that are really finding it difficult to measure up to perfect, I would say, that's not really a human standard, being perfect. If you think more about constant, never-ending improvement, trying to work on yourself all the time, that's something that's actually achievable. So let me know if you have any questions or comments, and thank you for listening. If there's a particular philosophical or biological topic you'd like me to cover, send it to me in the comments and I'll read it over and I'll take that into consideration next time. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.